Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alasdair Gold. You well?
Yeah, I am. Thank you. Hope you are too. Kind of putting a bit of distance away from the result at the King Power Stadium and kind of looking back at it and looking ahead at what's to come. And obviously, the Rob Guest derby this weekend, which I don't know if you're looking forward to as much as you normally would be. Sounds like there's a few injury problems going on at the Toffees, but that and transfers, we've got loads to talk about today.
Yeah, we'll start with transfers as we're now closing in on transfer deadline day. That is 11 p.m. on Friday, August the 30th. Tottenham very busy in the transfer window so far in terms of incomings, number of outgoings as well. And I can remember speaking ahead of the Liverpool game in May and saying change has to happen at the club this summer. And that's pretty much exactly what's happened in terms of outgoings. You're looking now at the squad, you probably, 3 or 4 more players to head out the exit door in a week. Things are really starting to take shape.
Yeah, they are. I did like a Q&A earlier on the website, and in setting it up, I had just had to quick look at the window itself just to refresh my mind at kind of who's gone out, who's come in. This is mad. So this is who's gone out of the Spurs squad this summer, right? Oliver Skipp, Emerson Royale, Joe Rodon, Eric Dyer, Ryan Sessegnon, Tanguy Dembele, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Ivan Perisic, Japhet Tanganga, Troy Parrott, Brian Hill, Alejo Valise, and Dane Scarlett. Technically, you could add in Matthew Craig there and Jamie Donnelly if you want from the academy. Junson Sutbell about to go to Cordoba as well. It's just mad. It's probably someone I've forgotten as well in all of that. That's a huge. I think even you and I, we have to do these articles, don't we, over the course of a season, like, the 10 players that could leave Tottenham Hotspur. I must admit, we probably don't mean that all of them are going to go. We kind of think like a selection of those will go. But my goodness, it's got to be the biggest clear out in recent years at Spurs, isn't it?
Very much so. I think even if you go back 12 months, Harry Winks, Davinson Sanchez, Hugo Lloris in January.
That Harry Kane chap as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not really going to mention Kane because I think that was a player pretty much everyone wanted to stay. It wasn't right.
True,
we need to get rid of Kane now.
A huge change in him going.
Yeah, and I mean, you have a look at the squad over the past couple of years, and you can point out the players who need to move on, and pretty much everyone's gone. Now you're looking at getting the move for Sergio Reguilon, Giovanni Lo Celso, a loan move for Manor Solomon. Then in terms of the loan market, again, Ashley Phillips and Alfie Devine.
Yep.
And then you're pretty much left with the squad and like wants for the season, really.
What's that witchcraft? The squad he wants?
Yeah, well, I think the only other one who we were probably thinking was going to head out the door was Jed Spence, but he's now part of the team. Played on Monday night at Leicester, and remarkable, really, to have just made all these changes the manager wants, fresh start, and it's exactly what the club needed. Given like not qualified for Europe the year before he came in, we dropped away from challenging for those Champions League places, hadn't got close to winning the trophy. You can't just persist with the same squad and hope something different happens. You need to make big changes. He's asked for that, and Spurs have delivered.
Yeah, it was a squad that had stagnated. It was a squad that had reached, I think a lot of those players had reached the end of their, it sounds awful to say, but their shelf life at Spurs is probably the best way to put it, is that they needed fresh challenges, they needed new experiences, and most importantly of all, probably, they didn't fit the Postecoglou system, perhaps. And it's something that we've always kind of, every summer, you and I are talking about the players that have to go. Now they have gone, and as people have always called for these players to go, I know there's the expression I don't like as much, deadwood, things like that. I don't agree with calling them deadwood at all, because there's a lot of talented players who go on to do very well in their careers. But if they didn't quite fit the system or they needed game time, to have actually, we kind of focus a lot on incomings, and there are a lot of incomings. £65 million on Dominic Solanke, 40 million on Archie Gray, 30 million on Wilson Odobert, Timo Werner back again, the Yang Min Hyuk deal for January as well. Obviously, Lucas Bergvall arriving in summer, despite having that been done in February. So, yeah, there's been incomings as well. But I think the outgoing thing may be not underappreciated, but it's an element of a transfer window that probably there is not as much focus on how important it is. And I do think that's probably, it could end up being, with a couple of those players coming in, I think are going to be potentially like stars, real stars. But I think that could even be the biggest part of the transfer window, is that they've managed to prune this squad to more the kind of lean, mean fighting machine that I think Postecoglou really wanted it to be. And well, we'll see, but it feels like there's depth in pretty much most of the positions. Maybe goalkeeper you could maybe do with another stronger alternative, but whether that's this window or next, we'll see. And maybe in the defence, you could argue about midfield, but I would say there's a lot of bodies in midfield. But I do feel like, and this is the thing, everyone's going to argue about the quality of players. Like some people might say, oh, you need a top winger to come in as well. I would look at the number of wingers, and the fact that Manor Solomon can't even get in the squads and he's going to have to leave this summer really kind of shows you, I don't think you can even put another winger in there. I think it's that difficult. There's so many options. But yeah, do you think that's as important, the kind of getting rid, but the pruning of the squad as much as the incoming?
Yeah, 100%. I think as football fans, all the focus is, of course, going to be on incomings because, fans want new players to come in to the club and, make a big difference. But in order for that to happen, there's got to be outgoings. And I think, of course, all the attention's going to be on those players coming in. But when you look at the players going out of the door, the Spurs have done a really, really good job this summer, and they need praising for it. And then maybe one of the early downsides, Brian Hill, you'd want him to go permanently rather than alone, because then you're going to be in the same situation in 12 months' time, because it's not worked for him in the Premier League. He's done really well when he's been playing in Spain, when he first came through at Sevilla, then had the loan spells with Valencia and then back at Sevilla. And he's clearly not suited to the Premier League. So it's just about getting him that permanent move, which will hopefully come at some point soon. I think he's still got another maybe 2 years left on his contract. It's 2026. Yeah. But when you're looking at the outgoings still to happen this month, Sergio Reguilon, Giovanni Lo Celso, they have to be permanent moves because they've got 1 year left on the deals now.
Yeah,
I don't think they'd have a problem shifting them on loan. Might be a different story permanently as well, in terms of just bringing in a fee that maybe you want for the player, and the buying clubs might have a different idea in regards to a price altogether.
Yeah, and I think you're quite right. It's one of those where on paper you kind of think you've got an Argentinian midfielder who's like plays constantly for his international side, set up the winning goal at the Copa America. You've got in Reguilon, a player that did very well, especially for Brentford last season, former Real Madrid player. On paper, it's like they should be easy to get out the door. But actually, there's other elements to it. And exactly like you say, the contract situation in lots of clubs would take them, and you can't really do an obligation to buy either, because that doesn't really work, because they would be like, why? Why would we do that? We could get them free in the summer. You would have to do a little bit like the Eric Dyer situation, where it would be a loan fee, and then that kind of kicks in at a certain number of appearances, and he also gets a permanent deal. It's complicated, but it's kind of the way around it. I agree. I think I get what you say about kind of praising the club for getting them out. I would also say you probably had to then subtract some of that praise for bringing some of them in, because obviously some of them have not worked out at all. Obviously Tongi in that list being a high profile one. And I mean, on the whole, I was just looking through the list again. It's a lot of them served their purpose at the time, I think, is probably the best way to look at them. You could certainly say with Tongi and probably Lo Celso to a degree, and maybe Reguilon, they kind of didn't reach the heights that anyone wanted them to reach. Manor Solomon's a bit of a different story. He was unfortunate, I think. He's never kind of really been able to show what he can do. But yeah, the outgoings, I think, has been a huge part of this window. But I do think they've bought well as well. I would probably like a little bit more, but I'm also kind of very wary of, I guess it's twofold to this. There's I'm not going to go down the whole homegrown foreign player thing because people get very upset about that. But that is one thing, and having to leave further players out, but also not blocking the way of some of these very talented young players. You've got Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall now who have come into training. Even when you sign someone like Archie Gray for £40 million, that's not a player who is a speculative punt, someone that is maybe going to be good in the future. That is a player that you're thinking he's going to be sensational, pretty much straight away. But still, there's an element of the unknown of actually seeing him in a Premier League setup and how he's going to react and everything. And everything we've heard, and we've kind of been hearing this throughout the summer, so it's no shock to say it now, but essentially Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall have been brilliant in training and also the pre-season games. And I don't know about your thoughts, this is a question for you really, they came on in that Premier League game at the King Power Stadium. They looked utterly comfortable in the Premier League environment, didn't they?
Yeah, very much so. I think that was evident in the pre-season games. Sometimes you've got to take opposition into question, but look, they played Bayern Munich in 2 games in the final, few pre-season friendlies, and coming up against, midfielders like Polina, Joshua Kimmich as well. Some very good players in there. And Archie Gray's coming to the club, on the back of playing 52 games in the Championship for Leeds last year. Was he Young Player of the Year in the Championship, in the Team of the Year as well?
Yep.
So it's not like they're just signing an 18-year-old from a club's academy who's not played any, first team appearances, and then you're expecting him all of a sudden to go into Andrew's Tottenham team and just, be a huge hit from the get-go. And then Lucas Bergvall's made the big impression in Sweden, played a number of games as well, coming from Djurgården. So 2 very good players there who do look like they're ready for the Premier League already, and that's maybe a lot sooner than some people expected. Maybe some thought it'd be a case of just easing them in for now, but I imagine Archie Gray might be in the starting 11 this weekend against Everton.
Could be. This is it. And it's like when you say 52 appearances in the Championship, we're not talking about 20 minutes at the end of the games. He started pretty much every game. He's like in there week in, week out in a very physical league. Lucas Bergvall has, since his move, especially to Spurs, has been a regular starter. I know you could argue definitely about the levels of the competition, the Allsvenskan compared to the Premier League, but that's the unknown. And then when he comes in the summer and you look at him and put him against other opposition, putting him in the environment around other Premier League players, it just fits. And I think the fact that they're 18, it's almost like a distraction. It's like it doesn't. It's the old cliche. If you're good enough, you're old enough, kind of thing. And you can't really lump them in. I'd even say with someone like a Jamie Donnelly or a Lancashire or players like that who are a year older, because their first team experience is so limited. Jamie's obviously gone off and got his first start for Leyton Orient. That's his first start as a senior player. And whereas you've got Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall, who are a year younger, and they have played so much football already. And it's like they're kind of battle hardened already. It's not like just throwing in an academy player and hoping that they do well. So I think it's one of those where if you'd asked me at the start of the window, I would have absolutely said, let's say a number 6, like a big experienced number 6 would be great. I won't lie, in the last few weeks, I kind of was wondering, is that kind of going to get in the way of Archie Gray? I think they've got a superstar in their hands, Archie Gray. I think he is going to be the kind of the person this midfield's going to be built around at Spurs. I just get that impression from not only what I've seen, but from what I hear as well. So it's a really difficult one because we're all the same. I'm lumping us in as well. We'll call for young players to be played, and in the next breath, we'll go, wouldn't it be great if they signed player A or player B? They're amazing. That player who, I don't know, plays in La Liga or plays in the Bundesliga or whatever league, or even the Premier League. And then you kind of forget yourself in a way. You kind of think like, that player that I really want to see get lots of minutes has just been buried, like put to the back of a queue kind of thing. Even someone like Mikey Moore, he's so young, but we're all so excited to see what he can do. But even in the Q&A earlier, someone was asking about potentially bringing in another winger, and I was looking at it. On the right alone, you've got Johnson Kulusevski, Odobert, Son can play there, and you've got Mikey Moore can play on the right. On the left, you've got Son, Werner, Odobert, Johnson, Moore again. Richarlison can play on either wing if you want him to as well. I think Solanke can play on the wings as well, if I remember correctly. I think he started off able to play on the wings. And of course, that's not even mentioning Manor Solomon. So, yeah, it's like, where do you even put another midfielder without essentially putting some of those players, into the wilderness, like a Mikey Moore? How's he ever going to go and get minutes anywhere? And yeah, it's... There's still, I would still like to see another like one or two signings if possible, but I also aware that comes with squad regulation challenges that I'm not going to go into. But I do also feel that people are slightly underestimating just how good some of these players they've brought in. I think Odobert is going to be very interesting as well.
Yeah, there was some training footage of him at Hotspur Way, what they published there. That clip of him walking out to training is brilliant, and then you just get Fraser Forster, who's got Richarlison in the headlock, just walking across the shot.
A comedy moment, wasn't it? I had to tweet about that because the video itself is kind of a bit boring. It's like the one they put out, it's just like players walk out, and you just suddenly see this comedy duo going across the screen. It's excellent.
Yeah, and then they put out another video, what might be about 90 seconds long, and that's just focusing on Odobert in training, and he's looks a very quick, tricky player. They were doing the usual finishing drill where one player had, fired the ball across the face of the goal, and player would be on the opposite side putting it in. Odobert was, playing from the right, and at the end of it, showcased his ability to find the back of the net as well. Some really good finishes. One in particular where he's just pretty much bamboozled Archie Gray, turned him inside and out, produced a Cruyff turn, and then fired it across Alfie Whiteman into the corner. So, yeah, it looks like he's going to be a good player. He's already got that Premier League experience under his belt from Burnley, and certainly someone who's going to be in contention for the matchday squad this weekend.
Well, this is another one. It's like 19-year-old, but he played 30-something games in the Premier League last season, and it's just like it's kind of different. And I absolutely understand that people want more senior, experienced players, but don't write off the talent that kind of Spurs have brought in as well. And yeah, Odobert was a bit of a funny one because obviously he arrived on a Friday, needed his work permit essentially processed, I'm guessing, for like a change of job. I know he'd already worked in the country, but you need all that kind of signed off. But because it was a Friday, that then meant all the Home Office departments that he would have gone through would be closed at the weekend. So he didn't end up getting that until the Tuesday, and then he was able to like fully get into the swing of things. So he's available now. Just kind of asking around about him. Seems, like we said, very talented young player. Kind of quite a quiet guy to be. I'm sure that a lot of players are when they first come in. I think his grasp of English, he can understand English really well, and he's still building up his language skills to speak it. I mean, he's only been in the country a year or so, hasn't he? Really, my levels of speaking a foreign language after a year would probably be far worse than that. But yeah, it's he can play anywhere as well. Right, left, number 8, number 10. There's a load of positions they can use him in. And this is the other thing about young players that I think maybe is overlooked. Postecoglou really relishes working with young players. He says that in his book that I read, and he said it in interviews before as well, that if anything, he kind of leans towards younger players because they're more moldable and adaptable to his views. And he wants, like we said, versatile players. Maybe when you're a little bit older, you're less willing to take on new ideas. You may be less able to fit into other places within a system as well. But with the young players, he can essentially shape them into whatever he wants from the start. And, he's got some very, very young players. Very, very talented players, also very young, that I think he can shape to whatever he wants. Gray could end up being a number 6. He could be a number 8. Who knows? Could end up still being a right back. I would imagine it would be midfield, but he could be. Bergvall, he can play anywhere. He could be a 6-8. He could end up being a winger. He could play a 10. And like we say with Odobert, he's kind of 4 different positions that he could potentially play in as well. And Odobert running at people, I think, is going to be a frightening thing for defenders. I do worry for Timo Werner as the lone player. I think he's going to have to be absolutely on it. Otherwise, Odobert is going to have his place. But it's also a push for someone like Brennan Johnson, who obviously was disappointing against Leicester. But players like that, having an exciting player who You would imagine Odobert will also be very good as an impact sub to begin with. I think he'll come off the bench against tired legs and cause absolute nightmares. And that then puts the pressure on the starting players to match that before he comes on. So, yeah, it's improving the quality. It's improving the squad. There's a question for you. Do you feel the squad is a better one than it was last season?
Yeah. I think it's better. I think undoubtedly you've got a striker.
Even though you've lost all of those players?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, you've lost some experience there with Højbjerg. You know, Skip's got 100 appearances to his name in the Premier League. Emerson's, you know, more than capable of playing right back, left back, centre back if required. But you brought in a striker, which, you know, the club have needed for a year now. Someone who's got, 19 Premier League goals last year.
Yep.
Timo Werner's brings that experience as well in attack. You've got probably Championship's Young Player of the Year, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, next best thing in Sweden, superstar in the making. You know, there's been some really good, you know, moves in the transfer market, and no, I think the squad's in a good place, but it's about, you know, winning these games now, which they should have done on Monday. But I think the squad's looking good, a lot of cover, and that's what's going to be needed anyway when you've got 8 Europa League games coming up on the calendar very soon. Carabao Cup, they'll be entering next month as well. So no, I think the squad's in a good place, and yeah, better.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think Solanke was a huge piece of the puzzle. I do. I think it was the area last season where they really struggled to kind of account for Richarlison's like times out with his injuries, and I think Solanke's it's kind of it's exactly the kind of signing I think the fans were after. Really, it's an improvement to the starting 11 as well. I think with no disrespect to Richarlison, but it's just because he wasn't available enough. Really, I'm sure if he gets a run of games, he'll put in a real challenge this season to kind of, you know, push Solanke as well. But and I do think that there's more options there now as well. But it's a very young one, a very young squad. I don't think there's any getting away from that. It would have been nice to maybe have what they had. They had a 26-year-old and a 28-year-old are the two kind of older signings. The rest have been teenagers. I would like another experienced head in there, absolutely. But there's still 8 days or so to go. We'll see what the rest of the window brings. But yes, I do think there'll also be a wariness of kind of blocking the path of these players who are for the now as well. It's not even like blocking a path of a player who maybe next season after will be good. It's blocking the path of someone that can play right now and be a bit of a star. So I think the squad is stronger. I think it's in a better shape. I can see 2 starting 11s in it, which is kind of what you want for all these competitions. So, I think there's still a little bit of work to be done, but I think it's getting to where Postecoglou will want it to be.
Yeah, so still a few outgoings needing to take place. 2 of them loan deals, Ashley Phillips and Alfie Devine. You'd imagine back in the Championship for both of them. I mean, it didn't quite work out for Alfie at Plymouth. I think it was 9 starts from 15 of his appearances for them, whereas previously when he was at Port Vale, he was pretty much starting 11 every week and having the big impacts. But as I mentioned on the previous podcast, I think it was Ian Foster was the manager who we'd worked with on England duty, and he lost his job quite quick into Alfie's time there, so that did have an impact on his playing time, I think. But you know what he's capable of. There's going to be a host of clubs queuing up for both of the players, and I think when Tottenham are planning for a team for the future, I think it's just so vital that both of those head out on loan again and just, you know, keep getting that experience, which is only going to aid their development in the long run.
Yeah, sometimes the good thing about having a stronger squad, the bad thing about having a stronger squad is that it does mean that some of the young players are going to find that their game time is going to be really restricted. And in that case, especially when they're ones who, you know, Alfie Devine had a terrific summer. I thought he was so good every time he came on for Spurs. I thought that showed that while the Plymouth loan maybe wasn't the greatest on the pitch for him, I think it kind of helped forge him as a player. I think he's going to get better and better. So yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't want to stray into the registration rules, but it was likely that maybe Ashley Phillips would have had to be left out of the Europa League squad anyway. So he can go somewhere, Plymouth's Young Player of the Season last for just over 6 months, or not even that really. And I think both of them could go to very good Championship squads. I think even with Alfie, I think the experiences this summer alone will make him a better player, and experiences at Plymouth will have made him a better player, ready for a Championship move, or a foreign move. You never know. You could end up getting a good offer from another league that you feel that will benefit them. Sometimes getting a move abroad kind of toughens them up as players. I mean, Jed Spence is a great example. I know he's a little bit older, but he's had a couple of loan moves abroad now to Rennes and to Genoa, and look at him now. It's fantastic. He's kind of back integrated into the squad, likely to get a fair few minutes this season, the way he's going. And yeah, it's just up to them to continue where they're going. I don't think either of them are players that like Spurs have written off or anything like that. I think they're just at the stage in their career where they need to continue their development and then come back and challenge. And I think Jed Spence is a great example now to all of those players that doesn't matter what's gone on before or whether you felt like you weren't going to break into the squad. Sometimes you just need circumstances around you to change and you're in there.
Yeah, one player who is leaving Tottenham, one of the academy players, Jude Sunset-Bell, he's heading to the Segunda Division in Spain to join Cordoba. Spurs have a sell-on clause, don't they? And obviously he's out in Spain now having his medical, so that'll go through pretty quickly. He'll actually come up against Iago Santiago pretty soon, who joined Elche. Then their teams are playing start of September. Nice. So maybe one to keep an eye on from a Spurs perspective. Decent move for him. Get a chance to play regularly in Spain, and if you take your chance, then there might be a La Liga club looking at you come next summer.
Yeah, I mean, with Jude, it's been a difficult one for him because he's been excellent for the under-21s, been a terrific player for them, was a really good kind of, sometimes you bring in signings who you hope will be able to make an eventual first team impact, but also there's the element of really improving your academy. And I think Jude played a big part in them having a great season last season. Mainly was playing off the right, but he can kind of play through the middle as well if required. But if you're going to be very clinical and cold and clinical about it, he never really got near the first team. He never really was mentioned among it, didn't particularly train with them as much as the other young players would be. And we'd seen, Will Lancashire, we've seen Mikey Moore used on the right, even though he's not really playing on the right for the under-21s. And Jamie Donnelly, of course, another one as well. So he wasn't getting that close to it. And I think this is a good move in that he'll go there now. It's a 40% sell-on clause for Spurs. I don't think there's any fee. I think because they hope that down the line they'll get more out of this 40%. I think he's signing a 2-year contract with an option for a third. It might get announced as a 3-year deal perhaps, but it's a good starting point. Like you say, go there, score some goals, catch the attention of the La Liga clubs, and you're flying, because he's got a lot of talent. He does. He's a very effective player. Just didn't quite make that breakthrough towards the first team.
Yeah, one player who has been linked with a move to Spurs, it's João Gomes from Wolves. Brazil player, made quite an impact at Wolves last season, notably scored twice against Spurs at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium back in February. But I think you've already said today in your Q&A that's not a move that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I said it. I think I said it yesterday as well. It's just one of those that I think it actually started on the internet as on social media as a Wolves. I think it was Wolves fans set up a prank account and put it out there, and then admitted afterwards it was a joke, and it obviously one of those that kind of gained a bit of traction. It's everything kind of asking around. It doesn't seem to be anything in it at all in terms of a transfer for this summer. Hey, I'd love there to be. I do think he's a very good player, and it would be a terrific addition at Spurs. But certainly doesn't appear to be anything in it as of this window. Certainly seems to be the word coming out from around in and around the club. But yeah, it's funny how these things kind of happen and start off. It was always like, I remember people used to do like April Fool's jokes. It was always centered around like a takeover the club. It was the Patriots owner, the Kraft family, I think, were going to take over. Someone did an April Fool's prank, admitted it was an April Fool's prank, but then what would happen was that every year someone would chop out the bit where they said it wasn't true, and it would get circulated on WhatsApps and the internet and social media. And every year people would say, "Oh, look, it's going to happen. Spurs are getting taken over by the Kraft family," and all this sort of stuff. And it was like, it's just funny the way social media works. Things spread like wildfire now. It's incredible. And you can just have, I think the original account, I had like 100 followers or something. It's not to say that the amount of followers you have is important, but it did kind of show that it was a newly set up account, perhaps. And yeah, it just got to the level where it started to enter the national consciousness of Spurs fans. But yeah, unfortunately, it seems to be nothing in it.
Yeah, right. It's that time of the podcast now where Ali will let everyone know about the benefits of using NordVPN.
Yes, this isn't a prank. This is very much true. This is NordVPN and something I've used many, 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 many times over the years, which is why I feel very qualified to be able to talk about it. Obviously, they're the partners of the podcast, but it is something that I've used so many times when I'm abroad, whether it be on holiday, whether it be working away, just to, when recreationally, allow me to watch TV shows and films and stuff that I want to watch when I'm abroad in those little moments. But also, it's for work-wise, it's been invaluable at times of either just being able to work, because sometimes in some countries they don't let you work without a VPN. You can't connect to the various things we do with our system, but also little things like being able to watch replays when I'm covering matches. If I don't have a replay screen, I can just plug into whoever is showing it back in the UK. And yeah, it's a very secure service. It kind of helps you if you're using public Wi-Fi. It helps you save money if you're looking to book flights, let's say from another country. You can set your device to think it's somewhere like, I don't know, if you're booking flights to Sweden, let's say, set your device to thinking it's in Sweden, and then you'll be able to buy from their end of the airlines and things like that, and that can save you a bit of money too. And it's NordVPN, it's the fastest VPN in the world. It means no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling, which I know is very important to you. You don't like your bandwidth throttling. You can get a really good discount as well because they're partners of the show. To get your NordVPN plan, if you go to nordvpn.com/gold guest, our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with the Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link, in case you just missed it, is in the podcast episode description box.
Right, we'll discuss Tottenham's loan players now. So it was a decent week for the 6 players out on loan. We'll start with Jamie Donnelly, who made the move to Leyton Orient last week, straight into the starting 11 against Charlton in the Saturday lunchtime kickoff. Game didn't go quite to plan for Orient. They lost in the last minute. I think it was Luke Berry who scored 92nd minute winner. Jamie Donnelly played as an attacking midfielder behind the striker, got a good amount of minutes under his belt, and seems to have made a really good impression. One of the fellow London news outlets was at the game, and they did their player ratings, and I think Donnelly scored 8 out of 10. So not a bad start for him, and they'll just be looking to kick on from that now.
Yeah, I mean, we said it at the time. I do think it's a great move for him. I think it's people talk about levels, Championship, League One, all of this sort of stuff. Just as long as you fit the system and you're playing loads of minutes and you're getting exposure to first team football, that's all that matters. I thought he did well. He almost got an assist straight away. And he just handled that step up well. And everything kind of we've heard around kind of coming out of Orient seems to be they're raving about him. They're delighted with him. Not too far for him to travel either, I would imagine. Just popping across London slightly. And I think it's... I think the Jamie Donnelly we'll see come back next summer, a bit like Alfie Devine, will be an even better player than the one that left. And who knows, in January, similar to Alfie Devine, I would imagine, as most loans for the young players have this recall clause, perhaps if he's absolutely flying for Orient and they kind of feel, okay, he's maybe finding it a little too easy in League One, we'll test him at a Championship club. We'll see. But yeah, a good move for him and a good start, really, just to see him in those surroundings.
Yeah, in the same division, Matthew Craig, he's at Barnsley now. Really good loan spell with Doncaster in the second half of last season. You know, a key player in their push for the playoffs because they were around the relegation zone. I think when he initially came in, not quite gone to plan for him at Barnsley just yet. He has started all 3 of their games, 2 in the league, 1 in the Carabao Cup. But it has been coming off around the 60-minute mark. But, you know, at least he's in the starting 11 and he's not like one of these where he's on the bench and then coming on for a few minutes here and there. But again, he'll be one looking to make a big impression, you know, brand new club. Sometimes it just takes a bit of time getting used to your new teammates and that. But no, I think he'll be pleased that at least he's getting the minutes in and, you know, just as I said, looking to kick on from there.
Yeah, he was a real under the radar kind of loan player last season, wasn't he? We in our loan roundups, we're kind of very aware of. He was, he was absolutely kind of smashing it for them. Really, he was just flying at that level for Doncaster, and yeah, this will be another kind of big move for him, I think, and yeah, just want to say I'm fascinated to see how far he goes and what level he ends up playing at because I do feel he's a lot better than kind of people will probably know he is. I mean, I guess most fans will only have seen him come on briefly at the end of a game, won't they? In the Premier League when he got that debut. But I think he's a name that we'll be hearing a little bit more of over the coming years. Whether it ends up being as a Tottenham player, I don't know. But certainly he'll, he's got quite a bright future ahead of him, I hope.
Yeah, stepping up to the Championship now. Dane Scarlett made his Oxford debut last Friday, got about a minute or so, came on around stoppage time, barely touched the ball. I think it was one touch of the ball, but I watched the end of the game, so it was Coventry-Oxford, and it was just relentless pressure from Coventry, and they did end up getting the winner from Archie Gray, and it's going to be difficult, I think, for Dane getting into the team because they've got Mark Harris up front who scored in both of their league games so far. They got about 19 goals in all competitions last season. But Oxford, they've got Blackburn this week and then they've got Coventry again in midweek, but this time in the Carabao Cup. You'd think he should start that Coventry game because, I mean, when he was at Ipswich last season, probably the worst thing what could have happened to him was he was cup tied because a few days before that move to Ipswich, he played in the second half Tottenham against Fulham, and that meant he missed out on a couple of starts for Ipswich. But yeah, he's back on the pitch, which is a positive. Now we'll just be looking to make that impact for Oxford starting against Blackburn this weekend.
Yeah, it's always a tough move when you kind of go into a club that's been promoted and it's a tougher challenge for them. Absolutely. The worst case scenario is it ends up like the Ipswich move, that he doesn't get a lot of minutes. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you can't really judge it on the first game. But to get 1 minute is just purely him coming into the squad and not being as at ease with everything as everyone else would be that's been there longer. But yeah, we'll be watching him closely. I think we've said it on a previous one. Dane needs goals. That's it. He's a striker. He needs to score goals. He needs minutes to do so. And yeah, injuries can happen to other players, so he's going to get his chance and he's just got to be ready for it. There's a lot of talent there. He's just got to show people that he's a goal scorer, I think.
Yeah, some very positive news for Tottenham. We'll move across to Spain now, and that's Elijah Veliz. Already played more football than he did for Sevilla last season. One game into the season.
Yeah.
So he started for Espanyol away at Real Valladolid the other day, played 70 minutes. I think at Sevilla it was like 30 minutes maybe across 6 appearances.
About that.
Barely played, so
barely in the squad sometimes, let alone kind of getting on the pitch.
Yeah, so good start for him. Good to see him back on the pitch. And then Brian Hill made an impression as well for Girona. Sounds like he was their brightest attacking player. They played last Thursday away at Real Betis, drew 1-1 in in the end. And it's a good loan move for Brighton, really, because they've got Champions League football to look forward to. So I think Champions League draws next Thursday. I think hopefully, all being well, it is a really good loan move for the player, and that results in a permanent move away from Tottenham next summer.
Tough question for you. Alejo Valise, will we see him play a competitive game for Tottenham Hotspur again?
I think we will. I think he'll come back and just got to assess the situation. Next summer, it'd be a bit strange to have paid about 15 million for him 12 months ago. Was it 13 million?
Around that mark, yeah.
Around that mark, and then just that's it. We'll sell him on next summer. So I think when he did play on a couple of occasions, he did make an impact, notably the Brighton game. And I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if Spurs had kept him for the second half of last season, they'd have played quite a lot of football in the end because they just didn't have a striker, and Son ended up playing through the middle, and that just didn't work for him. So again, like you said with Dane, Alejo Valise needs to, be scoring the goals and making a mark for Espanyol. And if he does, then hopefully we'll get to see him in the Spurs shirt once again.
I think this season is the one. I think it has to happen for him this season. I know it's very kind of putting a real kind of time limit on it, but I just feel it's more to do with the players that are already there at Spurs. I think, Solanke, obviously they'll hope is the long-term kind of striking option. I'm sure Richarlison will want to stick around for a lot longer as well. But you've also got Will Lancashire, who's the kind of the young striker that they're all keeping an eye on at Spurs as well. And we've already mentioned Dane, and we'll see. I just feel like for Valise to force his way into the equation, he has to have a really good, promising season now. I mean, you look at Troy Parrott. Troy Parrott, you would have thought he would have at some point get a Spurs chance after those early couple of games. Went away for years, never ended up coming back and playing for Spurs, and now he's RZ in the Eredivisie. So I think it's all laid out there for Alejo Valise. It's kind of what he's got to do, and just hopefully he can do it, because he is. I do think his physical attributes suit English football. I think, it's just about. It clearly didn't make enough of an impression this summer. It wasn't anywhere near that kind of the lineup, and Will Lancashire was getting in ahead of him. With Brian Hill, similar kind of thing, more so for Spurs. Spurs need him to have a really good season so that value kind of remains reasonably high and they can get anywhere near what they paid for him. Such a shame, because he's clearly very talented. It's just whoever scouted him and thought that he was going to be a Premier League kind of great fit for the Premier League, it's like, what are you doing, kind of thing. It's like he's made for the Spanish league. That's his kind of league. It's perfect for him. Who knows? He might suddenly bulk up. He might come back looking like a Adama Traore at the end. You never know. He may hit the weights, but I just don't feel like we'll probably see him pull on a Spurs shirt again. But Jed Spence is the one. He kind of ruins that argument every time, because we all thought he was heading off this summer.
Yeah, last one in the loan roundup, we'll briefly mention him, and that's Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Technically, is a loan player because it is a loan deal for this season. And then he's moved to Marseille, becomes permanent next summer because it's an obligation to purchase him. He started the other day. I think they won 5-1 away at Brest. It was a good start to the season for him. I think he'll fit in well there. I was just reading some of the quotes from his press conference unveiling. I didn't realise there was that much of a French connection between Højbjerg, because I think his mother.
His mum,
she's French, holidayed in France quite a lot, fluent. So you can understand why he wanted to make the move to Marseille.
Yeah, I still think it came as a surprise to some people, because I think he was looking for a Champions League club, and that wasn't quite what he ended up with. I think De Zerbi's kind of trying to build a bit of a Premier League style French team there with who he's looking at, and I know that Marseille have been looking at Manor Solomon. I don't think at this current stage, unless there's no other options come up, I think Manor Solomon's looking to stay in the UK, but Yeah, it's maybe a good move for Højbjerg, and as we said before, a good servant for Spurs. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because I mean, Spurs had to include him in the shirt numbers as well, didn't they, for the season? Because I think what it is, while it's an obligation, it doesn't actually activate until a certain part of the season. So at this stage, he is technically still a Spurs player. Of course, he is because he's on loan. But yeah, I think there's a little bit more to the obligation. That's not to say that it won't happen because it is an obligation, but I think it's just it's one of those. It's a certain time limit to when it kicks in, but which also meant that no one could take his number.
I'm sure I've seen before players leave on loan and then someone else takes the number.
Oh, it does
Because,
happen. I
yeah,
mean, we've got Raheem Sterling at Chelsea right now. He's still there. I mean, this is it. When we talk about kind of squads and everything, you just have to look down the road at Chelsea where they've got about 10, 15 players who are like training apart from the first team. And yeah, having their numbers nicked by new signings while they're still there. It's just, makes Spurs look normal.
because I mean, they were looking at Spurs' squad numbers when they were released on Monday, and I think 2's available, 3 will be when Reguilon goes, 4's available now because Skip's not there, 5 because Højbjerg's gone, 11 because Brian
18
Hill's
will
gone.
also come up. Yep.
Yeah, so there's a number of vacant numbers at the minute, and
a number of numbers.
appealing ones as well. Ones what you'd think
absolutely.
a lot would want in the 1 to 11, but no, they're available, and might be next season when they're taken.
Did you see Will Lancashire wasn't on the list and then suddenly appeared on it a little while later? It's like, well, no, we forgot Will.
Yeah, he's number 42, and Mikey Moore's 43. Is that 41?
Yeah, who jumped up? Someone jumped up into the 20s. I can't remember who it was now. Someone had quite a big jump.
Can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm gonna have a little look at the shirt numbers now.
I think the ones I noticed in terms of changes, it was early Jamie Donnelly, Mikey Moore, and it had been Will Lancashire. And then obviously Destiny Doggy, Guglielmo Vicaria, they changed their squad numbers as well.
Mikey Moore's 47.
47.
Mikey Moore 47. Yep. I feel like someone definitely jumped up into the 20s, but I can't see them now. Maybe I was just making that up. I mean, obviously Odobert took 28, didn't he? Tongi's number. There wasn't too many kind of other surprise switches around, and obviously Pat Matasar's going to have PM Sar, isn't he? I think on his back. That was the only other change.
Yep. Right. Finally, we'll move on to Saturday's game against Everton. Looking forward to it.
They're funny games, aren't they? You know what threat you're going to get from Everton. Obviously, the threat at Goodison Park was there for all to see in terms of the set pieces and the problems that Vicario faced as well in the defence. Your guys are having some problems, aren't they, injury-wise?
Yeah, I think it's 14 outfield players, senior outfield players available for the weekend. All 3 right backs.
Season you had.
I know. They're all 3 right backs are out. Doubt over Tarkowski, Jared Brandwaite's out. James Garner's out as well. Chimiti's a long-term one. Yeah, so limited options there. So not gone down well with the Everton fans because it looks potentially like Mason Holgate, Michael Keane gone to play. 2 players who really should have been out of the door a couple of seasons ago. Jake O'Brien, who we've signed from Lyon, you'd think should come in for his debut because there's barely anyone else to select in defence, and I can't really see Sean Dyche selecting some of the academy players and giving them a go. I think throwing them in the deep end, I just can't see it. Maybe in midweek when we're in Carabao Cup action that they will get the chance in the team, but not this weekend.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's all set up for Spurs to kind of take grasp of the game, and that's when often Dr. Tottenham comes along to help everyone's ills and pains, everyone apart from the Spurs fans, of course. Yeah, it's one that they should go into the game with a lot of confidence. They should go in there looking to take advantage of Everton's problems. Yeah, irony there, isn't there? Of you talking about players having to play that the fans wanted to go on years ago, and that's kind of we've started this, the whole thing about Spurs kind of sorting out that issue to a large degree. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a battle. Would you? I think we kind of spoke about this the other day. Would you put Archie Gray in there then as a number 6?
Yeah, I think Archie Gray starts and Yves Bissouma available again after the ban the club imposed on him for the Leicester game. He was back in training with the rest of the players the other day. What I noticed was basically those who either came on as a sub or didn't play all day were the ones involved in outside training. Bissouma there with them. Yeah, I think for Bissouma it's just a case of getting minutes here and there while you can, and just trying to get back into the good books of Postecoglou and the rest of the players as well. Yeah, I think Gray starts.
Yeah, I would start. I think it's actually quite a good game to start him in as well. I think he's a player that he kind of likes the physical battles as well. He's a very tall player. He's a very big player, and in as we said, playing at right back, he had the most tackles in the Championship for an under-21 player or 21 and under player last season. So he's absolutely able to put himself about in there as well. That won't be an issue. Yeah, we await to see kind of the latest on Rodrigo Bentancur. We'll find that out at the press conference tomorrow, and how he's got on and whether there definitely was concussion involved. You would think from the way it all happened that there will be, and the fact that he was unconscious, it looked like in the air anyway when he fell. That appeared to be from my lofty perch in the press box. And also good to know about Pedro Porro. It looked like an impact kind of injury from above, but we'll find out whether there's anything more to that. Obviously, you'll have Jed Spence there ready to come in, or maybe even Archie Gray. It depends kind of what he decides to do there. Elsewhere, probably Decky, isn't it? It's through Decky has to come in. I think it doesn't send a great message. I don't think if he doesn't then come in, because otherwise it doesn't look like it was tactical last time, which it clearly must have been. So go on then. What's your starting 11? What's your Spurs starting 11 to take them on?
Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Doggy, Gray, Sarr, Maddison, Kulusevski, Solanke, and Son. Same as you, I reckon.
Yep, I'd go for that. Yeah, I would, obviously assuming Porro's fine. And it's a funny one. Even if Bentancur doesn't have concussion, I probably wouldn't want to throw him back in after having something like that happen to him.
Well, I think his personal trainer back in Uruguay has been speaking, and he was saying like he's out. He won't be playing against Everton because of the concussion protocol. I think.
Oh, he has said the concussion, has he? Oh, okay, that's. I saw there was something about him while I was doing some stuff earlier, but that's okay. Well, that's fine, and we'll no doubt get confirmation on that tomorrow. Yeah, I think
the quote was, due to Premier League protocol, Rodrigo will not be able to play in the next match.
Okay, interesting. Because they used a concussion sub, didn't they? So presumably that must have meant they feared that there was concussion going on. So yeah, well, hopefully he's okay. I'm sure he'll have a big old bump on his forehead, which appeared to be he had when he was walking out of the stadium, or two. But yeah, I feel like it sounds a bit daft to say because it's so early on, but it kind of almost feels like a must-win game because of the result in the first game. I'm not saying it's like the be-all and end-all of the entire season, but I just think momentum-wise, I think they need it before they head off to St James's Park.
Yeah, because no doubt it'll be another 4-0 defeat, 6-1 was it the other year?
No,
you know what's going to happen. St James's
I don't want it to happen. I'm not having that again. I cannot go all the way up to St James's Park and see one of those performances again. And you're always beside me as well. There's a theme there as well. You always kind of sat next to me, kind of. I don't think you're quite suffering as I am, but having a report on it is a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, no, I think this weekend is, a game Tottenham should be winning, and they need to win really, especially when you're going into a game at St James's Park, because you've seen what Newcastle have done to Spurs on the past few visits, and that's the last thing we want to see. Spurs being ripped to shreds at Newcastle again, because then you're going into an international break and you might not have a win.
Yes,
and then is it the North London derby when they come straight back?
It is after that.
So
I mean,
need
there is
to win.
there's nothing worse for you and I than writing stuff in an international break after a heavy defeat. It is just a time of bad feelings, toxicity, yeah, all of that, and yeah, no one wants to really hear anything. No one wants to read anything. We have to write it. Yeah, so please, Spurs. I know Guesty doesn't want it particularly this Saturday, but if you could win this Saturday and then go to St James's Park and not put in a horror show performance, that'd be lovely.
Yeah. So how does Ange fit Wilson Odobert into the squad this week then? Just before we finish, because I mean, what happens? Does Timo Werner or another attacker drop out, or does the defender drop out in order to bring him in, or does he leave Basuma out of the
I
squad?
think there's a part of me that kind of feels like he would have been tempted to leave Basuma out for another squad, but I also don't think you can injury-wise because I think it would leave the squad too thin on the day. And the thing with Odobert is he's fully match fit. You know, he's played for Burnley in the Championship already, scored the goal on their opening game, so he's kind of ready to fit straight in there. I think it's someone like I say, a Timo Werner, perhaps it's a big call there, and this is what you want. You want to have the levels of quality in your squad where people can't even get on the bench. It's rubbish for them, but it's great for the levels of the squad and the competition. So yeah, I think we'll obviously we'll find out on Saturday morning, but I would imagine I think you put him in there, and I don't think Johnson comes out at all. I know people are very unhappy with his performance, but I think you know that Johnson can come off the bench and as well if you're having him on there and do a really good job. He's done that a few times last season. I think Timo Werner ends up becoming, unless there's another knock, obviously Porro could affect that if there's something with him. But I would say Werner's probably the one most at risk.
Yeah, interesting. See what happens. But as I said on the last podcast, this is what the head coach wants. He wants these tough decisions because it means everyone's available. Right, we'll leave that there for today's latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham. We'll be back early next week to reflect on the game and then look ahead to another trip to St James's Park. So in the meantime, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.